right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Today, we have a lot to talk about. In fact, we got some craziness going on. In fact, right now, we are facing the possibility of major shifts that could transform our daily existence. The government has covertly flown in 320,000 migrants, a move that raises serious concerns, especially since our border has been hemorrhaging for years now. This situation makes it even more critical to be worried about the potential for bad actors from enemy states slipping in and causing harm to our community. And then, of course, there is the movie Civil War. We're going to be talking about this tonight. It hasn't even hit theaters yet, but it's already causing a buzz. It's almost like real-time predictive programming showing a deeply divided nation, which mirrors the tensions and the events that we are actually living through right now. This is all while we are approaching, quote, the selection process of the prez. It feels uncannily like the storyline is being plucked right from our current reality, where the stakes are perceived as higher than ever. But here's the kicker. The wake-up call isn't coming from whispered rumors of upcoming films. It's blaring from the financial sector. The skyrocketing prices of gold reaching $2,130 an ounce, and Bitcoin actually hitting 69,000 today. These are massive, massive red flags. This isn't just a small wave. This is a tsunami warning, people. These aren't normal market moves. This is clear signs that something big and potentially disastrous is on the horizon. There was a huge jump in gold and Bitcoin prices today, and this is a big deal, and it should wake everybody up. I'm telling you that, of course, it should be a clear signal that we need to be alert and aware of what's coming. The super rich moving their money into these assets isn't just about safeguarding their wealth. It's because they know something is about to happen. Heck, they might even be secretly planning it. These signs are everywhere, so this moment is crucial. This is time for us to really pay attention to what's happening around us, and we're going to cover all of this and much more on tonight's episode of Marfoogle TV. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. You can get your money out. Nothing's gonna help you now. When the rapture comes, you are going straight down. You can get your money out. All right, yeah, the super rich moving their money, it is very creepy. But what is even crazier, today we have crazy, crazy news that is popping out of the White House. We'll talk about that here in 2 seconds. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
Also, just real quick, let's, of course, welcome all of the wonderful, wonderful people in the chat. We have tons of old school Foogle fam members, the Marfia in the house. Viv B, Smoking Swamp, Charles May, Heather Collins. We've got Big Chase, says hello, y'all. Moneybags Nut Bob, probably one of the top 10 best names out there. Derek Cared, what's going on, with a big salute. Michael Ambrosia, J Pass, Brian Knight. Brian Knight, thank you as well for being here forever now, probably close to since I started. KT Cleans a Lot, Shells Spells, Yaz Warrior, Dwayne Roberts, Engineered to Succeed, thank you. Sherry D, Pissed Off Puppy, Darth Izzy, and Lord of the Towels. We'll talk to you guys in just a bit. And of course, make sure to thank your mods by going over to marfooglenews.com/friends. There's a lot of great people over there. Of course, Rip Curl has been putting out videos. He just went to an awesome conference about, I think it was a hunting conference. It had all sorts of cool stuff. He had, of course, lots of the booths on there. So make sure to go check that out. And then, of course, Trinity has been doing all sorts of deep dives. Ilea has great videos about her animal sanctuary. And, of course, Wages World has been covering all of the solar events. So make sure to go check all of them out. So the president came out and admitted, their administration actually admitted that they are flying people in. Now, we knew this. We actually talked about this. We covered this. Besides like getting like super, left or right about this, this is a big deal because they are saying it because it is a national security issue. And they're saying, well, it's kind of like telling us like, oh, well, we let our kids drink in the house because it was safer that way. Like, we'd rather have our kids drink in our basement than go out and party and get in a car crash. It's kind of like that, right? Like, oh, we wanted to bring them in because then we could vet them properly, right? Like this is crazy. They have a secret flying program that has transported over 320,000 people into the country and has national security vulnerabilities. Dex, they straight up told us that they're doing this because there's so many issues with this, and I don't think it's a really good excuse.
No, I mean it can't be an excuse that says, "Oh well, let's limit the amount of people that are hitting the already crowded border. Let's make it a little easier to bring them over this way." Are you kidding? That's not how this works. It's not meant to be. Let's make it easier or anything like that. And the fact that there's security vulnerabilities, that's the case across the whole thing. Anytime anybody comes in and doesn't go through the normal process, there's tons of security vulnerabilities. And the fact that it's wide open and you can walk across, or apparently right now you can just hop on a plane and get first class airfare right here, and get put up probably in a nice hotel, especially if you're in New York. You get put up in the fancy hotels and get a nice paycheck too to go with it. Who
Well,
wouldn't want
so
that?
and the videos have been coming out for months now of people that have been following or taking cell phone videos, and none of it was actually confirmed. Everybody had speculation. People asked, and then of course some of the people that drove the buses or taxis, they said, "Oh yeah, that's what it is." But most said, "Oh, we can't. We're not at liberty to talk to anybody." But everybody saw the obvious. They knew what was going on. As far as this goes, this is like the logic on this is really really hard to kind of fly by everybody. I'm surprised that this is. I'm not surprised this is happening. I'm surprised that they're just straight up admitting it. At the same time, everything that is happening right now, it seems super super obvious. I mean, like everything that's going on. I mean, did they get meals and peanuts and a hot towel on their way over? Like, think about all of the people and probably relatives and friends that may have went the hard way. I bet they're a little jealous of getting over this way. Like this, this was probably a cake. I mean, it was a cakewalk compared to the people that are crawling through barbed wire. So pretty nuts, to say the least. At the same time, look at where we are at, and this is a big issue. First of all, the border is one of the biggest issues we've run into. If you go throughout histories, issues like this have divided people just straight down the middle. People will not see the same way on this. Same with others that involve our body, our choices, our rights. There are things that people will just never, ever, ever see eye to eye on. And when you get this to the point where you actually train people to see either this way or that way, you're going to have people so divided that this is going to end up looking like it did back in the 1800s. The issue that people were mad back then, a lot of people see it as the same base principle. Now, the issue back then was something that almost all of us can agree on wouldn't have been an issue today. Everybody would have agreed on one side. But the principle was that that government was telling people and states exactly what they had to do and what they were supposed to do, what they couldn't do, and that's where people got fired up. Right now, people are really fired up about this. So there's been a lot of chatter about a civil conflict, and I think most of us are kind of understanding like this is getting really, really out of hand. So with that, of course, the Civil War movie. Hollywood A24's Civil War movie provokes timing, debate, and amid some fearing actual civil conflict. Now, I've seen a lot of videos done already on this movie. With the last movie that we talked about a lot and got a lot of coverage, a lot of hype, was Leave the World Behind. The Leave the World Behind had all of these kind of things that really came together to make that one pretty spooky. Not to mention it was like plucked out of a reality that we could be in a couple months. It was also made and produced by a former president who is still somewhat involved, or some think is completely involved in the background right now. The situation on that, I would have to say go watch Leave the World Behind. If you don't have Netflix, ask a friend that does that thing with discs. Figure out your way of watching it. But man, I'm telling you, that movie was absolutely spooky. It involved a civil conflict, and it really comes down to this plot line that really is a realistic plot line. This one actually has all of the makings, one, of a great movie, if they don't wokeify it. And most that I have seen that have broken down at least the 2 trailers that have come out say that, yeah, by the looks of it, this isn't going to be, all softened up. They have Texas and California and 17 other states seceding from the United States. Dex, why is it crazy that in that trailer they have 19 states seceding? Do we not have a current list? And I think it's even bigger than that of states that actually are open. Is it at 19? Isn't that a real number? I feel like there's a number of states that would be open to secede or talking about the next step of it.
Well, I don't know that exact number. I know there were states that got behind what Texas was doing, but I don't think that they were necessarily. Everybody talks about Texas as the secession state because I believe they have something in their laws that allow them more flexibility towards doing it, which some argue may or may not be true. But in this movie, they even say that Texas and California are allies, which is kind of odd given the state of divide that's in our nation as far as that goes, because that doesn't necessarily line up with the divide that we have now. Not that there's not plenty of people in California that may be in one side of the argument versus the other, but it seems like it's pretty leaning one way. At least it's been that way from its political stance and its governmental stance.
Well, I can't remember his name, but we talked to one of the party leaders that was trying to have California secede, and it got some news coverage back a few years back because there was a gentleman who was kind of leading the way and trying to get California to secede, and everybody kind of laughed it off. And even then they said, oh, well, everybody talks about Texas because Texas, I'm not exact on the history of it, but when they first joined the Union, it sounds like they kind of were given this option, like, well, don't worry, if you do want to leave later, you can, whatever else. And I don't know how that's evolved over the years, but it was put to me like that. Like there was some kind of loopholes for Texas if they did want to get out. I don't know if that's true, but it definitely was a different kind of scenario when all of this was going down. It is kind of crazy to think of. Even our grid is in 3 chunks. Texas is so big; it's the size of 4 states. But Texas's grid is part of this 3-chunk system of our power grid. If you were to knock us down, Texas can actually go on its own. They can separate, but they are part of this 3-chunk grid, which is really, really crazy to think about. That this is all being talked about. Now, as far as it comes off the back of the controversy over the 2022. Let's see here. Oops, I'm on the wrong one here. So check this out. There's a couple really smart parts in here. Film from acclaimed writer Alex Garland, Ex Machina, images a near future dystopia where the United States has been torn apart by the authoritarian rule of 3-term presidents. Nick Offerman. The story follows a journalist, Kirsten Dunst, as she makes her way across the freshly divided states of America. Now, we kind of touched on this trailer as it came out, and a couple of the things is right in the first 10 seconds of the trailer, it actually portrays, it says the 19 states that have seceded, including Texas and California, are against the United States of America, right? So you actually have the plot line not sounding like it's left or right, more like versus this totalitarian state. Why does he have a 3rd term? The United States has a 2-term limit. So what happened there? Did they force that third term and that's why it seceded? You don't know yet, right? But that third term makes a huge difference. Just them saying that in that trailer, you get what's going on. Not to mention California and Texas. It kind of puts it as that. And there's another part in that trailer. At one point, he says, "Oh, journalists are taken out on site in D.C." That also points out that this is kind of a authoritarian thing versus the people. So when you have movies like this, many people are like, "Oh, who cares? It's just a movie." You have to realize Hollywood has been part of the psyche of humanity for a very long time. And I say humanity because it's not just, it doesn't just mean something here in the United States. Almost everywhere in the world, if they're watching huge blockbuster films, it is ours that they watch. They will sit there and take our movies and dub them for the rest of the world. In fact, it's going to be in the theaters, I believe, first for the UK and Ireland before it's going to be in theaters for us. And I don't know if that's part of it. Like some movies, they actually won't show in certain countries and they will show in other ones because it won't cause a big uproar. But here, I almost figured that this was like a Netflix only movie. But it is going to be in theaters. And I think it's going to be one of the biggest movies out there. I think everybody's going to go see this. And that if you think about that, everybody is going to be thinking in this mind state. Not to mention, you already have the divide. You know it. You've seen it yourself. You have friends and family that either don't talk to you because they're the bad guys or they're either way you're on, either side you're on, which again, it's crazy that most people just chunk you into one or the other. Then you most likely have seen the effects if you are on the opposite side. There are people on the right that won't talk to the left and vice versa, mostly the other way around, right? But as far as civil war, there is actual issues right now that could cause this. Do you feel like we are being pushed into one? Do you feel that this is being pushed from outside our country or outside of our country, even controlling and pulling the strings on people inside our country? That is what many people feel. They feel like we're not even in. If you look at the technicalities of the last 3.5 years, you kind of look at it and go, well, maybe somebody else is kind of pulling the strings here. If you think about it, a lot of us didn't think that this last 3.5 years we would have the leader that we did, right? So it is kind of crazy if you go down a couple of those roads and think, well, this could have been a lot different. And it's not because of why. Dex, go ahead.
Well, and let's not forget what Gilly Bates said. He also made that suggestion that we're going to have an event during the selection process. Everything's going to get hung, and we will have a conflict because of it. Of course, the fact checkers want to claim he may not have said that, but we actually heard it. We heard him say it.
Not to mention that quote, Dex. Can you find the quote so I can show it? It's basically, it says the polarization may put an end to it all. The way he said it, he didn't say we may have or we might have. He says our selection process, in other words, will be hung and there will be a civil conflict. The way he said it. Now, when you go to Snopes and all of these checkers, what they did at first, they say we're gathering evidence. They literally said that for about a week. They said, well, we're gathering evidence on this. They didn't say it was false. Now they still do not say it's false. They don't. That was such a weird comment, and I don't remember what that was for, but it was so creepy to hear that. Most of us absolutely took that as a fact, but again, you can't go to something like that and actually find false. You cannot. It does not say. It's like they didn't want to say it was true, but they couldn't say it was false. Dex, I'm guessing a screener.
It's in
then?
screener.
Okay, so yeah, look at this comment, and mind you, that where he is buying property, every little thing that is happening right now, he is involved in, which is really, really crazy. So yeah, check this out. Let me reload this real quick. Yeah. This is Business Insider. Mr. Gay says political polarization may bring it all to an end. And okay, so they add could even lead to a civil conflict. Do they have the actual? Oh, okay. I admit that political polarization may bring it all to an end. This is what the part. We're going to have a hung selection and a civil war. Okay, he does not say we may. He does say it may bring it all to an end. You could kind of assume maybe it was a mistake, and he's assuming you'll may or might on the next one. But then he goes, "We're going to have a this and a civil war." What the heck? I mean, like, what is going on right now? Again, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are you going to go see A24's civil conflict if it comes out, Civil War in the theaters? Are you going to wait until it comes out in videos? Or are you going to live it? I guess at this point, we don't know. But it is pretty trippy that everybody is literally talking about this at the same time. And then Dex, this is insane. So this is why we are warning people, and this is not financial advice. We are telling you exactly what all of us preppers and anybody that has basic knowledge of why gold goes up, why Bitcoin goes up, understands this is a huge deal. Like, this is a sign that we all knew was going to happen. This is why, in fact, there is no affiliate today for gold or anything like that. But we did, like a year and a half ago. We told you guys about certain gold companies, and we were saying, hey, go check it out if you want, learn more. We were telling you this because both of us honestly think that solid gold, silver, stuff like that is something that people should look into, right? So just a general thought on that. Now gold is spiking. Bitcoin is spiking. It hit almost $70,000. It's currently sitting over 60 at $63,000. Gold is at 2130. It's huge. Dex, do you want to talk about why it is important that gold just had this huge spike?
Look, just like we as preppers know it's important to have precious metals and financial capabilities when it comes time to trade, and we do things like buy silver, buy junk silver, maybe even invest in gold if that's part of your strategy. The top dogs, the most wealthiest of the wealthiest, know that too, and they do it as well. And when you see the value of gold going up, it means that massive amounts of money are moving into it. That means not just you and me, we're buying a coin here or there. This is the big dogs that are basically moving tons of money in, and they're doing it for a reason. They're trying to protect their value because they know something bad is coming, whether it be financial doom or, and more so in the case of all of the things that we have been talking about, whether it relates to all-out war, civil conflicts, or even the types of events that the feds and others have warned us about that may be happening to our nation as a result of a lot of the things that are going on with other countries. So I sort of look at this as an obvious sign. And when you see both of them going up at the same time, because crypto to the other side of the coin, so to speak, pun intended, it's like the digital version of gold. And in other words, people will use that as another place to offset and move money and hold it there while they're worried about something that may be getting ready to happen. So these are two big signs to see these happening at the same time.
Yeah, when the rich, and by the way, we pointed out months ago, all of these super rich were dumping all of their stocks. They were getting rid of whole teams. You saw Mark Cuban sell his like baby, his NBA team or NFL team, whichever one it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you see people getting rid of their chunks of teams, multiple, not just Mark Cuban. You see fire sales, people getting rid of all of their property. You see them moving their stuff into gold and to these more old school secure ways of keeping money. You see the stuff going on with the banks, and there was supposedly this remember what happened with the stock exchange? They said it might have been a glitch where all of this stuff was moving all at the same time, And a lot of people thought that it was because somebody just got like a heads up on something. And all of these super rich, and the reason why they said it was a glitch is they said, whoa, all of these stocks are moving at the same time. Tons and tons of stocks are being sold. And it was such a huge number. They were like, whoa, what's going on? Many of us thought that that was because they just got a heads up on something. And they actually had to, didn't they freeze the market that day? Didn't they do something like it was going so crazy? They thought something fishy was going on. I think they almost used the GameStop thing as an example. They thought something was going on. Um, but when that happened, it was like, what the heck is going on? There's been multiple banks, these other banks that have basically crumbled, and then it's kind of funneling all the people into 4 or 5 main banks. Well, these banks over the last couple of years started with CV. They have minimized everything. They've made it so easy. And one thing I point out is they have made it so easy to use cards everywhere. They've made it so easy to use your phone, not just like being able to use your phone to get something. There's that. But there's also the fact that half the time the banks don't even question it. Do you remember 10, 15 years ago when anybody, if you even used your own card, it would deny you half the time? If you went to the ATM, it would be like, are you sure? Call the bank. It would do that all the time. If you did things, people would check your ID. Check ID, even if you didn't have it wrote on your card, people would check IDs, all of that. They got rid of that. Why? Because they want people to use their cards with no problem, even if they lose money because people are stealing cards, using credit cards. I haven't been ID'd using a card in years. Have you? I mean, honestly, has anybody been carded using a credit card or debit? I haven't. And as far as cash, that got reduced during CV2. Take Walmart. This is a perfect example. Some of you may not even like to go into a Walmart, and I don't blame you. But there was probably 10, 15 check stands. When CV hit, they did this whole self-checkout thing. They did 40 self-checkouts and no regular checkouts, right? 2 things on either side of it, but most big stores had 20 over here, 20 over here. They had a huge line all the way to the back of the store every single minute of the day. And this is, again, 1 out of 20 would be cash only, and all the rest would be debit. And they said it was because they ran out of change, that there was a change shortage because nobody was using change. I thought, personally, this was a bunch of BS. But then they made, if you do have cash, I went to Walmart one time, I had to wait like an hour. It seemed like it was probably realistically 45 minutes because I just kept getting skipped. The one person, the one thing that had cash only, that could take cash, because I didn't have a card, I didn't have any of that. It was like somebody had 2 full carts of stuff. So they had to go through the one self-checkout that was open. They had to do 2 carts of stuff. Then the person and the person ahead of me, both using cash, all of us are in kind of this separate space, and we're just skipping people past us. Like I should have been getting paid by Walmart. I was like, oh, that one's open, that one's open, that one's open. This happens all the time now, and it still happens because they still only have like one that's like that. Why? Well, a lot of us are like, well, it's because they don't want people to use cash. They want to make it as inconvenient as possible. And then get this, once you are totally comfortable with this card stuff and all of that, boom, all of a sudden you can't access anything. We have already seen with this outage, when they cut the underwater sea cables, people in different countries where this affected, they couldn't get money out of their ATMs. They couldn't access all of this stuff. It doesn't matter how easy, if you can use your freaking hand like the mark of the beast to buy your groceries, if the internet is cut to that store, they can't send it out to actually do the transaction. I saw this the other day when the cell phone outage happened. People, I think he's like a Luddite. Like he's born around the same time I am, and he's against new technology. He's a ham radio operator, and great channel. I'll have to link it. But he talked about the AT&T outage and his opinions on it. He actually had a pretty good, solid view on it. But he talked about it, and he said that, the cell phone stuff would work, and NFS, that worked, but it didn't matter. People commented, oh, Apple still works if there's no internet. Yeah, you can use your Apple Pay, you can use your NFS with the actual machine, but that machine needs internet access, and you can't do a transaction without the internet. Not to mention hospitals, 911, all of these things need internet. Right now, we are completely devoted to this digital age. All of everything is getting moved onto this grid of everything digital. And at the same time, the rich and elite are basically bouncing out of it. Why? People should be aware and completely waking up right now that something is going on. And by the time it does, you're not going to be able to vindicate anybody who told you that, because there's not going to be YouTube channels to be going to. So I hope people are waking up to the possibility of this. And again, I hope that nothing like this ever happens. But most of us are pretty set that this is going to happen. This is what we believe. And that is why we prepare appropriately. Dex, as far as the gold and the Bitcoin, I'm sure a lot of the people doing Bitcoin are happy about it. But think about why it's there. Dex, do you want to go over, let's see here, China drops peaceful reunification reference to Taiwan?
Yeah, sure. So, China is going to boost its defense spending this year by 7.25%, but it's also officially adopting tougher language against Taiwan as it's related to the budget figures, dropping the mention of peaceful reunification. So, as you know, they've always said they're going to rejoin with Taiwan. They would either do it peacefully or they would do it by force. Well, now they're sort of pulling that language out, very much akin to what we saw with Kim in North Korea, saying he was getting rid of the whole notion of reunification with the South. So he's really saying, I'm getting rid of the idea of reunifying. They're saying, hey, we're still going to reunify. It's just not going to be peaceful. We're increasing our wartime budget. We're increasing our military budget, and we're pulling out this peaceful mention.
Yeah, so and raising their defense budget by that much, that's pretty insane. Before we move on, just to remind you, if you haven't already, make sure to go check out Energy. They make solar generators. This is one of the best in our opinion. Again, this is the same one that just won the STTR Phase 2 contract and is going to be shipping out with the U.S. Army. Again, this is silent, it is expandable, and it is modular. Go over to marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. Not only will you give us credit, but you will get a huge discount and, again, help independent news. So thank you guys. Appreciate you. marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use that code Marfoogle. Also, remember, they also have the Flex 1500, their original unit as well. But I highly recommend the new one because it does have the built-in heaters, the reinforced steel frame, the 1,500-pound latch system. The latches are extremely easy to use and very, very quick compared to the old sliders. Go over to marfooglenews.com/energy. All right. And then Philippines and U.S. to hold military drills in the islands facing South China Sea. Before we cover this, I do want to say thank you to everybody over on DLive. Thank you guys. Thank you, Cambria. Thank you, Jammer1. Thank you, Chance. Let's see here. Thank you, Kiki Gray. A diamond for one Aunt B. Thank you, and thank you. By the way, Chanel Beveliqua, thank you for your support this week. Thank you, Old Combat Vet. Let's see here what the rest. Thank you, Bad Apple Media. I'll get to that here in 2 seconds. I'm going to build a secure compound with the cash from both my lawsuits from the time I was gang stalked by Foogle haters, Jokeland County, Michigan. Bad Apple Media versus everybody. I'm the most hated channel on YouTube. Truth is the enemy of lies. Tough go out here. I'm solo in YouTubeville. Stop by, say hi. Bad Apple Media, I will, and thank you for your support. Old Combat Vet, when the Fed stops supporting the 30 million new corners, what will they do to survive? Newcomers, I think you meant new. Okay, it does say that. When the Fed stops supporting the 30 million newcomers, what will they do to survive? Oh, yeah, like the people coming over. And then Richard Koschmeider, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Paul Barbacano, working on a meetup spot for Marf family in May for Pennsylvania. It's harder than you think to get this organized. Paul, I already know that. Back when we did have Discord and all of that, it was a lot harder when you had people actually getting together, and it's not so easy. Especially, it's hard enough to get your own family together rather than to organize groups of it. And then Troll Slayer again, thank you. Grace for you too, Sean James, and Bad Apple Media. Thank you for stopping by. Sorry that you feel that way about being hated. I think I think you just got to stay positive. I know you've been actively trying to change your content, and I think that's really awesome. All right, and then let's see here. Let's go on and okay. So the U.S. to hold military drills. So we've talked about Philippines and the U.S. and obviously the Philippines, if they get into something, they have a treaty and the U.S. is supposed to back them up. The Philippines and the United States will carry out their annual exercises next month in key locations, including Philippine Islands facing the South China Sea and Taiwan, as tensions with China in the region continue to simmer. The exercise called Balikatan, or shoulder to shoulder, will move away from sprawling military camps in the countryside to locations in northern and western regions. Philippine Army Colonel Michael Logico told a briefing on Tuesday. The move is consistent with the shift in the country's focus from internal to external defense. This year's exercises, which a Philippine diplomat previously said could be larger than last year's 17,000 strong drills, will also focus on cybersecurity training and information warfare. So even Philippines is actually focusing on their cyber security. Dex, as far as like when I think of the Philippines, I don't think of like the most crazy, insane, advanced technologically. Obviously, their military, they don't have a lot of the technological perks that a lot of the bigger countries do. But they do have, I mean, do they have their own cyber security? Do they have their own cyber force?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they've got that level. I mean, again, they're probably not one of the largest militaries out there, but they've definitely invested in it. And being a strong ally with the West, they get access to lots of things like that. I think the crazy thing that we have to pay attention to here is how much it has escalated in those disputed waters between the Coast Guard boats of China, between the vessels from the Philippines, including the warships they put out. Then we recently reported helicopters, military helicopters were going in from China to try to ward them off. They put floating barriers up, barrier lines just floating across the water to try to demark an area to prevent the Philippines from getting to what they considered were their shoals. All of that is happening, and then we're going to go drill in the same area. We're going to go drill in contested waters. We're going to go drill in islands that are near Taiwan, that are near that South China Sea. So, are we going to put ourselves in the midst of that, in the midst of any of that type of contention? Will all of a sudden we be running an exercise and running into China's Coast Guard trying to pop in and hose us down with the water cannons like they've done, or shoot lasers at the bridge of the ships? So yes, that's what we got to pay attention to, because that'll take it to the next level. And we'll talk in a moment about how just today or just now they have recently taken it to the next level.
Yeah, they actually say that they were hurt and vessels were damaged by the Chinese Coast Guard. So they didn't say anyone perished, but they said that the actual crew was hurt. Whether we don't know what everything is true, or if what's Ganda, or if what's part of an agenda to spur things along, or three-letter agency operations, whatever else, because I'm sure they're involved with Philippines and Taiwan and everybody else. But if we take what they said at face value, they're saying that they were hurt and hit by a Chinese Coast Guard vessel, and people ended up getting injured. So what do they do about it? How do they respond? What does the Philippines do without backup? That's the crappy part is we have all of these situations like where if the Philippines went to war with China for some reason, or for many reasons, the U.S. has this treaty where we're supposed to back them up. We're supposed to back up Taiwan. We're supposed to back up South Korea. We're supposed to back up Guyana. We're supposed to back up UKR. There's all these cases where we're not actually throwing the first punch. We're like the friend that sees their friend get punched, right? And they jump in and get arrested for it. So not great to see this happen. It just seems like week after week, we see one more issue with the Philippines. It's like they're slowly pushing it, one thing at a time. So yeah, big deal that they said that they physically hurt. If somebody would have perished, would there be any difference? I don't know. And then Dex, do you want to go over the North Korean hackers apparently breach 2 South Korean chip gear makers?
Yeah. So, just when you think NK can't do enough, they're now in the cyber. Now, we know they've been invested heavily in cyber hacking. They've done quite a bit in the past with a lot of the ransomware stuff that's gone on. They've generated a lot of revenue, and they've also infiltrated and tried to take things. Now, that's exactly what they're doing. So they've gone across the border there into the south, into South Korea, and they have allegedly gone into one of the chip manufacturing facilities, and they are stealing blueprints of products and of the manufacturing facilities. So they employed a technique dubbed living off the land, which is one we've talked about. We talked about this not too long ago, how the feds put out a warning about this living off the land technique that is going to be used by the hackers. And this is exactly what they did. So again, that living off the land is the one of the notions that they're utilizing components and other parts of the ecosystem, if you want to call it that, that make up the network or make up the entire IT umbrella of what they're using, and they find those backdoors through those other things, whether it be a router, whether it be another piece of equipment or some other software that's in the land, so to speak. They're living off the land, and they're hiding in there and infiltrating, then getting from there into the main systems to start stealing things, in this case, like blueprints for products or blueprints for manufacturing facilities. Now, we just reported the other day that Kim was really talking heavily towards his population there, talking about bringing manufacturing to the rural areas and growing their manufacturing business. And we specifically talked about that as probably being for military. And it's clear here that they obviously want to get in the chip business if they're going after blueprints for chips as well as manufacturing facilities for chips. And I think that's going to be one of the critical things that's important for them for their um, military industrial growth that they're trying to do so much of and send and sell off to, say, Russia and others, as well as build up for
China.
themselves against the South and against their arch enemy.
I think they're stealing. I think they're possibly stealing the stuff for China, but who knows? I guess we'll see what ends up happening. All of their war manufacturing factories are at full buzz, according to the 3-letter agencies. But who knows what is actually true? And then North Korea threatens consequences as South Korea and U.S. stage latest round of military drills. No surprise here. I mean, we knew this was going to happen. We actually talked about this at length the other day, because it's like every time anything happens here, this is going to happen. As far as, with the threatening consequences, they've done this every single time they do this drill. But we also want to point out these drills can always be used to actually do something. We talked about how they did kind of a new separate drill, which the simulation and the scenario, the fake scenario that they had put out, was that North Korea did a surprise attack. And what the U.S. and South Korea talked about was the potential for it to be much like what Hamas did to Israel. So in that event where they rushed in, they did this surprise attack, and then it was started as quick as it was over, right? Or over as quick as it started. So they actually did a separate drill, taking out all of their artillery, or pretending to take out all of their artillery, because they said that would be the surprise, right? Well, now they're saying consequences. What are the consequences? Did we see the consequences? Like, we had all of these social media platforms go down. Maybe that was like a shot over the bow or something. but I highly doubt it given what today was. But what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments down below. And yeah, they said some pretty harsh words, but with North Korea, it kind of gets old what Kim and his sister say. It's just like it's constant. And then German leaks that left British troops at risk are at the tip of the iceberg. Real quick, before we do that, just want to remind you, we've talked about a lot of the problems. The solution is over at fooglenews.com/EMP. You can go get yourself an EMP shield for your cars, trucks, motorcycles, and boats, even your generators in your homes. It's a device that can protect those and keep them running, not only through an EMP, but also through a Carrington level event. If you want to get protection on your cars so you can get home to bug in or to get out to bug out, highly recommend going to marfooglenews.com/EMP. Make sure to use the code MARF because you'll save $50 off per device and you will help our channel out at the same time. But yeah, that's the same company that's outfitted agencies like DHS, DOD, and the DEMSO team. So go check them out, marfooglenews.com/EMP. And the German leaks that left British troops at risk are just the tip of the iceberg. So I was very sus about the whole thing with German leaking this whole thing is just super suspect. Germany essentially came out publicly, wasn't it Scholz or somebody else? It was whatever happened there. Not only did they leak this war plan, they also put out information essentially stating we don't want to be like everybody else. And everybody else being that they have actual troops on the ground. And it actually mentions it here. They talk about how France and what was the other one? France and Dex, do you remember the other?
The UK.
The UK already have boots on the ground. They are straight up saying that they have boots on the ground. Now they're trying to be technical about it, like, well, they only just press the trigger, or they only pull the trigger, or they only work the machine that shoots the country, right? Well, that's a huge deal. Having any UK soldier straight up in UK uniform firing a missile that ends up hitting Russia, that's a whole lot worse than, like, they were mad that we even supported them and gave them the actual stuff to fire at them. They were mad that we were training people to fire those said weapons. Now they're admitting that it's actually NATO troops that are firing the missiles, that are controlling them, that are shooting Russia. I mean, Dex, I don't think it could get, like, it's like they're slow rolling us into this. And this is what I thought. This is what I said a year and a half ago, that they were going to slow roll us. And when that one guy died, the specialist, and they said he died because he went AWOL from the military. They said he went AWOL from the Navy SEALs. This was about a year ago, year and a half. This guy who is such in high regard as a Navy SEAL went AWOL, just left the U.S. military and said, I just believe in Ukraine so much that I want to go fight for them, and then perished on the battlefield. I said, no, I think this dude was already over there, and they couldn't say that because it would cause a war. And he's probably going to get his medals and his awards after or posthumously because they can't admit that he is on the ground doing missions for the U.S. When that guy perished, I suggested that they're going to slow roll and slowly tell us like there's more and more help because they said, oh, there might be some people there that are training, doing this. Now, Dex, they straight up are saying that there's boots on the ground for NATO. I mean, this is exactly what we said.
Well, and what's more interesting in addition to that is the fact that this was leaked by Russia, meaning they intercepted it. And what it's come out to find now is that they were using unsecured lines. They were calling in and talking this level of defensive capability talk and planning talk on unsecured lines. So when they say this is the tip of the iceberg, they're saying there's actually potentially a lot more that may come out because they just put this out. They haven't put it all out. And there's a potential that, and anybody that doesn't think, when you look at the cyber events that have gone on in UKR from Russia, it's been huge. It's one of the biggest tests. It's one of the most successful attacks they've had. They've infiltrated everything from infrastructure to communications. They brought it down, they brought it up. They've been embedded in all of it. So to think that you're going to make phone calls in there and you're not going to use secure lines and think that you're not going to get picked up and recorded by Russia, that's kind of crazy.
It's stupid.
Unless they're just being dumb and they want it to happen. But certainly the admission that there are boots on the ground, even though they said there's a few or a small number, but they're there to support the missiles. It doesn't matter. They're on the ground, and yeah, they had to backpedal really hard to try to clean this mess up, and it's not working.
Yeah, they said it was, and Rishi Sunak's official spokesman declined to comment on UK operations in Ukraine beyond saying there was a small number of troops providing protection for British diplomats and training for UK armed forces. So they actually denied it, but said, yeah, there's a small number. Probably, I don't know if can they get in trouble for lying if it's like a national security thing or a war. I don't think they can. I think the president could have said, no, we just don't have anybody there. Even if there was a UK soldier behind somebody at a press conference protecting a diplomat, they could probably say there's nobody there and
Well, if
not
it's
get.
classified, they would have to say there's nobody there.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, um, but yeah, they actually put in there one of the quotes is on the ground, that they have soldiers on the ground. So if people, I bet you everybody's going to start saying boots on the ground, boots on the ground. It's crazy because if you look back at, excuse me, if you look back at the previous wars like Afghanistan and all of these others, Iraq and everything else, it was like back when the news covered all of this stuff, it was a huge deal. The news would play for 24/7 rotating boots on the ground, and boots on the ground really meant something. Nowadays, it's like everything is filtered through the social media platform headlines and the dying legacy media, which I don't even think has writers anymore. I just want to point out, this is totally separate, but we have seen so many articles lately that I think are either wrote by AI and messed up by humans. Like there's been spelling errors, there's been just straight up grammar errors that a human, even if they barely proofread, wouldn't do because it's weird stuff that a computer would do. We know that like CNET, everybody knows CNET. If you've looked at any technology review or anything, you probably see one of those pop up. CNET said, this is a year or 2 years ago, they said, oh yeah, we've actually used AI to write not one, but over 70 articles. And we didn't tell anybody until now. So they put out 70 articles without telling anyone that they were writing it with AI. Now, most people don't care about that, but that means all 70 of those articles didn't have a human attributed. They might have had an editor, but they didn't pay a writer for it. I wonder actually, going back, those 70 articles, who the heck did they say wrote it? You know, like usually an article has like an author and you get credit. Like, who wrote this awesome article? Well, ChatGPT did. But it's like we're getting all of our information through this filter and we don't know what is actually real at this point. I mean, it's insane. But if there truly are boots on the ground, we are in a lot of trouble. And then Moldova spy chief warns on new destabilization attempts by Russia. Dex, do you want to go over what the Moldova spy chief said?
Yeah, so basically, as we've talked about, the relationship between Moldova and Russia has pretty much disintegrated as the government has steered more towards a pro-European course, wanting to join EU, wanting to potentially join NATO. So that has just completely split Moldova from any type of ties with Russia. Now, as we've talked about that state or internal state or breakout state, however you want to refer to it, called Transnistria, that is inside of Moldova, that is full of Russians, that has Russian troops there and has been asking for help. So put all of that in the lens, and now we have the spy chief, the head of their intelligence group there, coming out and saying, "Look, we have got." They've intercepted a record level of activity by the Russians, the Russian security services, and they're expecting more destabilizing actions this year and next. So all along the lines of their selection process, which everybody likes to throw Russia into that mix. They're saying they're interfering in that. They're interfering in other things like the European integration, as well as trying to discredit government institutions, as well as any of the politicians that are supporting the ascension into the European Union. So there's all this activity that they're claiming is happening from the Russian security services by way of, whether it be cyber, whether it just be socially engineered, or influence or infiltration into media or other things like that to put up information that destabilizes the area and destabilizes the people and provoking protests, as well as other things that go along with that. So, you know, continue to watch Moldova. This is turning into a hotbed, for various reasons. I gave you a good 5 or 6 different reasons why this can turn up big. And I think we're probably going to see something happen with Russia in the not too distant future as far as what do they do to support that breakaway state that's been asking now formally for the last week for Russia to come in and help them.
Yeah, and obviously we've mentioned many times before, but if you've never seen our show before, Moldova, there was a map a long time ago that showed Belarus's leader Lukashenko showing Russia and their forces and Belarusian forces going into Moldova. So there's this expectation that Moldova might be one of the first parts that has went in after Ukraine. So again, we'll see what ends up happening with it. And then Russia, Ukraine destroys a railway bridge deep inside of Russia. So, and at this point, people are like, who did it? Was it a UK soldier that pulled the trigger, or was it a French soldier? But Ukraine said it blew up a railway ridge in Russia's southwestern Samar region on Monday because it was being used to transport, quote, military cargo. Now, think about this. If they hit major targets like this, if it heavily affects Russia, look at this week's news. This week's news is that the guys that are launching the missiles, the guys that are doing this, are potentially from France or from UK or from the US. It says the incident is the latest in a string of explosions targeting Russia's rail network, which Kiev says Moscow uses to move troops and equipment in its invasion of UKR. It says a railway bridge over the Chepevka River in Russia's Samara region was blown up on March 4th, 2024 at around 6 a.m. The bridge was damaged by blowing up its support structures, Ukraine military intelligence said. Russia was using the railway to transport ammunition from a plant in the town of Chepevsk, it said. So, again, that's number one. And then number two, Dex, if this is true, this is a giant deal. Okay, here's why. So in the last week, we actually talked about a piece came out on from 2008 to 2014. There was a report put together on what Russia had actually wrote down as their line that they drew, specific reasons why they would use a tactical nuke. And under this, Russia actually had some very specific things. So I'm trying to remember, and Dex, if you can remember a couple examples with me, but one of them was if they destroy 3 large, or anybody destroys 3 large warships, that would be grounds enough for them to use a tactical nuke against that enemy. Do you remember some of the other examples? It was like if so many people perish, or
if their command and control center was targeted,
airfields,
if, certain locations, certain airfields were taken out at a certain level. There was a handful of those different criterias that had to be met.
And now we have Ukraine destroys Russia's brand new $65 million warship. And again, who pulled the trigger on this? Was it I'm trying to think of a stereotypical French name or something. I was thinking Sven. Pierre. Was it Pierre, or was it fill in a stereotypical UK name? Darren. I don't know why. Darren? And that's, I don't know. You guys fill it in the chat. We'll read some of them. Speaking of which, let's do a quick roll call. Where are you from? Just a general state or province? Let's obviously you can find other Foogle fam and Marfia from the same area. Instantly have something in common. Bucket of Rocks, Handa, Pierre, Randy man, that was good. Texas, Sasha. That sounds more like Ukrainian. Let's see here. Sean C. What's happening? We've got BC in the house. Austin, Dallas. Hodad, what's happening? Vivian. Very true. Miami, Florida. Sorry. Went down the wrong tube. End is near from San Anto, Texas. Is that a place? Or is that a spelling error? Cornwall, UK. Wait. What was that guy's name? We could have used your name. James Damron. We have Team Alaska from Anchorage, beautiful Anchorage. Rocky Mountain. What's happening? Dan Oberweiser from Western Montana. We have Karen from New Zealand. Randy Man, what is happening? San Antonio. That's what I thought. Let's hear Dennis from Ohio. Tracy B from Central Texas. We have Dorado, Puerto Rico. Dolly, nice to see you. Haynes Eastlinger. Let's see here. Beep Beep 58 from Oklahoma. Nice to see some Oklahomans here. Stepping away from their artichokes and setting their cement. Bothiel of Missouri. Shirley Millward and Idaho in the house. John, nice to see you. Listen to Grandma. C, nice. And then Mana, Stormcrow, Emissary of Sophia, and Jesus is My King from San Clemente. Nice to see you. Born in Ohio, live in Florida. Dragonfire, nice to see you. Nice to see some new names here too. Montana Life, thank you. Rocks, Star Hunter, Laura Gittins, and everybody else. Maya, the happy one, nice. Kathy Payana, I didn't see you in there, but I hope you're in there. Ilea, thank you. All of the mods that are down there as well. Rip Curl, if you're here. Fort Williams, Texas. And then Wages, if you're out there. Arlene Herber, Chance, and Jammer. Thank you guys. Appreciate you guys much. Arlene Herber, thank you. And Julie Wilkerson. All right, and let's go back to the map. Let's go over to Vensa. Putin is grooming a secret son, 9 years old, to be his successor, with his daughters ready to act as regents. This is weird. So first you had Kim Jong-un randomly had like a daughter pop out of nowhere. He has like a 10 or 12-year-old or something that he's been seen with all over the place. And it's almost like wondering if one of these black market countries has like a cloning program or something. Like, you know, that girl, what if they could make like a female version of Kim? That would be really freaky. Kind of sad too. You would think you'd put somebody else's stuff in there, but yeah, apparently Putin may have some secret successor. Dex, this is kind of a wild one.
Yeah, it's very wild. It's coming from a Russian lawyer, ex-MP, so used to be one of the MPs, a political pundit. His name is Mark Fein. He's 52, and he once represented an iconic anti-Putin band. I don't want to say the name, but he is basically saying that there is these allegations that, you know, I guess he is in the know of, about him wanting to keep his dynasty rolling with his daughters and his son. So his 9-year-old son, and even bringing 2 of his elder daughters into power eminently to act as potential regents if his health fails. So, you know, it is all complete speculation. You know, when it comes to him and the West and the media, they'll create anything, but it might not be without any semblance of some truth. There could be some truth here. It could be very easy to see that somebody like him would have. He's got plenty of children. I think we understand. He's got a handful of them, and some of them aren't even. Some of them are known, and some of them aren't known. So it would make sense that he could want to do this. And he's been trying to extend his power, and he continues to do that, even though, or extending the laws that allow him to be reelected so that he can stay in power.
I want to point out, and I always do, especially with Vlad, it's like you can't be an article writer to write about Vlad if you don't add in the tyrannical, the despos. It literally has the paranoid and private aging. So it's like paranoid, private, old ruler only publicly uses his two high flying, with claims his two high flying. Another one. It's like, is that, am I reading it? Ruler only publicly claims his two high flying with his first wife. I see. Do you see what I mean about the freaking AI things? Like, am I just reading that wrong, or am I stupid? I could be very stupid. The paranoid and private aging ruler only publicly claims his two high flying with his first wife, but is rumored to have at least 6 children. High flying. What is that? Is that maybe that's an older term, but then it says the despot's older son, alleged secret son, older alleged, see, and then putting alleged after it, you would think, and the despot's alleged, or the despot's older, I guess that works, alleged secret son Ivan is believed to be 9 and already being primed for presidency. What a crazy thing. I mean, like, that's modern day. Putin lives in a gold house, has gold toilets, gold sinks, gold everything. Elon says that Putin is actually richer than him, which is so crazy. How does he even acquire that much money when the country's GDP is less than that of New York itself? New York has a higher GDP as a state than Russia does as a country. It's like $2 trillion, and New York is $9 trillion. That's insane to me. How does he become that rich? Like, does he take like a commission off of president? Like, what is how does he make that much money? Obviously deals with other countries, but like, gosh, how did he accrue more? Because you think about how much money Elon has. If Elon has couple hundred, $300 million, how did he acquire that when his country, makes $2 trillion a year, and half of that is spent on military? It's crazy. But I point out, they always say the descriptors. So before you even read it, just say you were just trying to have an unbiased view of the facts that are happening. That isn't possible with Western media or any media, to say the least. It's always like, they do it here too. They do it on one side of the party, or the other. Both of them do it, but they do it to where you're reading a partied, biased article. You're never just reading something that's unbiased, trying to tell you the facts. It's telling you opinion mixed in with the facts, which is okay, but they try to pretend like they're not biased. It is, and they do it with our former president. They do it with all sorts of people. They do it with the current president, and they'll do it in a good way. They'll say the amazing Trudeau, the very youthful and effervescent Trudeau, the beautiful and bureaucratically prepubescent Trudeau. They'll say things like that. And then Facebook and Instagram down as user fears Meta has been hacked. Okay, so huge BS meter going off with this. Dex, do we have, let me pull up, I'm going to pull up that image that we had, because I can just grab that. Can we grab that image that I sent you, the screenshot? Because that would be helpful for this as well. But Facebook,
I'm putting it in screener right now.
Okay, so Facebook, let me show you this. It kind of fits into this whole thing. There we go. Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Boom, boom. All right, so this is why it matters, and this is just what could fit onto one page of Down Detector. Today, early, I think it was like 10 to noon, everything went down. This platform did. The daddy of this platform, Microsoft, went down. Honeywell went down. Call of Duty, like all sorts of servers went down, and they all went down at the exact same time. Do you see that line? How it just goes bing? Okay, but Facebook is saying it's almost like Facebook didn't know everything else went down, so they're just like scrambled and they're like, no, it was just a glitch. It was some sort of update or this or that." Dex, do you want to go over why this is unlikely that they actually put out a reason why it happened, and it wasn't a hack, and it wasn't it wasn't, it wasn't like a solar flare or something. They actually say it was something they did on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, they're blaming it on a software issue or a configuration issue in their login system, which would make sense only if they went down. It's questionable though when you look at that chart you showed. A lot of other things had the exact same experience at the exact same time that have no relationship to Meta. Meta has a single login they use across all their platforms. So if they were to be hacked and they wanted to take them down, that would be the obvious place to start. Because if you take down the authentication system, then no one can get in now across multiple platforms. Now, what's interesting though is they're going to be quick to come out, and they were to say, "Don't worry, this was just a technical glitch, and we got it fixed." If it really was a hack, they don't want that publicly out there. They don't want their stock price to tank. They don't want the world to know, especially with everything that's going on right now. And I think we have to be paying attention that these are the types of systems that will be sought after and have been sought after and gone after by our adversaries. And so, whether it be our infrastructure or even something like Facebook, well, you may think that's kind of mundane, it really isn't. If they get in and they can take it down, they can stop a lot of communication. Or if they get in and they infiltrate, they can create and circumvent and usurp a bunch of communication that's going on. So, pay attention to this, just like we've seen with AT&T and T and all the other events that have happened that they sort of write off and say, "Don't worry, don't look here, move on. We're sorry. Here's your $5. Go get some hash browns and move along." I think we need to be a little bit more astute than that and pay attention to what's actually happening here.
Well, and think about how much private information people may have on there. People have been using Messenger for years. I know people that only use that, or they'll call using that, and I'm like, and they've known about how in your stuff that Facebook is. Many people got off Facebook. All youth have gotten off Facebook, which is like it it's crazy to me because remember when MySpace was like, "Oh, you still have a MySpace?" Now the youth are like, "What is Facebook?" They don't even know what Facebook is. And these are 20-year-olds that are like, "Facebook? What is that?" When Facebook was huge. I mean, like if you're older, then Facebook for a chunk of time for everybody. There may be a few stragglers out there that, and I know you guys are out there that are like, "No, I never used it." Or you didn't have the capability, or it wasn't accessible to you. But most people were on Facebook, and it became this addiction. We found out why years later, that the thing was designed to pull you in. It was very well, most likely LifeLog 2.0. But the more the point is, it's like all of this information, all of these social media platforms you have your private stuff on, if they get hacked and taken over, it's like they have your password for that, and they have your info, they have your text, they have your calls, they have everything. So, people in this day and age, it's like just because it has a lock next to the thing, they say, "Oh, it's a secure website." That doesn't mean nothing when they take the whole thing down. But again, something else bigger might have happened here. I don't know if there's solar events that coincide with this, or a major hack, or something else. Did they cut? There's all these theories around it. And again, I said earlier on the video over on Marfoogle News, which if you're watching the replay, you can watch it right here. I said earlier that it's like when they do something like this, it's super easy. When they say this, it's obvious that people are going to go, "Wait, everything went down. You're full of crap," And then they come up with crazy theories. And then the MSM has all of those crazy theories, from Taylor Swift to this or that, to then use against us and say these are all a bunch of theorists. I think I find it's really weird when there's these setups where it seems like that people are going to come up with crazy theories on, when it might be a very simple thing and it's not what they say it is. And it's on purpose that they don't tell you what it is. But yeah, and then they start restricting the internet because of all of the misinfo right before November. Let's see here. Mars World 369 says probably bought crypto. Probably bought crypto. Good point. And then LOD Will, thank you for the support. Viv B says, pro tip, hey Germany, don't plan military excursions on Snapchat. Exactly. Don't use your Facebook to plan some stuff, or don't use Snapchat to have your private leaked calls, right? That's pretty funny. It's pretty bad. If you haven't already, go check out Patriot Supply. They have one of the most affordable packages as far as right now. The month is $60 off. So go check that out. In fact, if you do multiple of those, if you're trying to get 3, 6, 9 months of food, this is the reason we picked My Patriot Supply, and we actually have other freeze-dried food companies. This one we have picked for the most affordability, plus the most bulk. So again, there's a lot of you that may go to Costco to get things in bulk because you get a cheaper price. Well, this is much equivalent as far as if you want to get freeze-dried food, this is the company to do it if you want bulk and you want to get the most amount for most bang for the buck. So go over to marfugglenews.com/prep. It's all freeze-dried food that will last 25 years, and it's all packed very efficiently so you can store it in the smallest space possible. When freeze drying takes all of the moisture and everything out of it, it not only when you add water back in 10 years from now when you eat it, it brings all of that back. It keeps most of the nutrients in, it keeps most of the flavor. But when you remove all of that and seal it in a Mylar bag, it takes almost a fraction of the original space. So it's very easy to store compared to a big old can of beans or something like that, which is non-malleable, not flexible, nothing. Go to marfugglenews.com/prep. You don't need a code for this one. You just need the link. And also check out their other stuff like their Alexa Pure Pro. This is their water purification system. It can filter a ton of water, and that is a very good thing, especially if you are using this for your water to wash, to shower, to use on everything. In the case our water pumps and everything goes down, you're definitely going to want something better than a Brita filter to clear that water. It gets rid of 99.9% of all of the gross stuff, including fluoride, chlorine, viruses, bacteria, pesticides, and pharmaceuticals, which, again, a lot of people are questioning that last one, especially in the last year. All right, and that's marfugglenews.com/prep. And then Cuba asks the UN for help as food shortages worsen. At the same time as opening up spy stations for China and Russia, they're asking for help. Really sad, though. I do have a friend who has a Cuban family, still has family in Cuba. They said that it's really bad there. It's actually the worst that it's been in decades. Their family are in their 70s and 80s that still live there, and that, in fact, they had the choice to leave, but they didn't about 10 years ago. This is one thing. So 10 years ago, they had the ability, the family that moved away and immigrated 35 years ago or something, they had the option to pay for the elders to come over legitly and get green card status. They did not want to leave at that time. They did not want to leave Cuba. This is a personal friend of mine. And they said that they did not want to do it. And now they've passed that by. The window has passed. It's a lot harder to do now. They have now asked, they said, we need to get out of here because things are really bad there right now. So that was just a kind of a side story that I thought kind of fits into this, and something that I at least can verify that apparently it's getting really, really bad there because of certain situations that are going on. But so the elders in that family, they said, like, we need to get out of here. Can you redo all of this? And now the mom, who's in her 60s, is saying, like, now it's almost impossible. And I think the elders they're now in their 80s. So the mom's in her 60s, and she said it's so much harder to get citizenship and to do the legal processing stuff. And they're going to try to start, but they're not going to get them out in so much time. So they're now looking at other options of just getting them there temporarily. because it's so bad. And then they're sending them stuff. So with this, they're saying that they're trying to go through the WFP, the World Food Program, and Cuba's government for the first time asked the UN Food Program for help as food shortages on the island worsen, on the communist island. It says that it had received unprecedented official requests from the Cuban government to help providing powdered milk to children under 7 years of age. I'm sure that applies to older folks as well. The request is a sign of the seriousness of Cuba's economic crisis, as well as the shortage of milk, fuel, and medicines are also running low. WFP confirmed to Spanish news agency EFE that it had been approached by the Cuban government to, quote, continue monthly delivery of 1 kilograms or 35 ounces of milk for girls and boys under the age of 7 throughout the country. So the wee ones are the ones that are affected the hardest from this. So yeah, not going too well there. I would think if China and Russia are building spy bases there, that they would be doing some humanitarian aid too. But apparently they're asking the UN. And then Dex, do you want to go over the Haiti gangs try to take control of the main airport?
Yeah, things are getting really bad here, and we'll probably be hearing more out of Haiti as we've seen little bits and pieces of this over the last year as it continues to escalate and get to the point where it is really almost a gang-run nation at this point. But what has happened is a large number of the gangs tried to seize control of their main airport. This was at the same time that 4,000 inmates had escaped the prison there and started basically massacring people indiscriminately throughout the nation. So it was kind of crazy. There's a lot of shock stuff coming out. What's happening there? It's unimaginable, some of the things that are going on. But they went in. They actually tried to sort of stealthily go in as plainclothes people and then try to take over the airport. And I don't guess they were that successful, but there was a lot of fire and other activities that are going on. And of course, now there's a lot of extra armaments around there trying to protect the airport and make sure it's secure. So continue to watch this. We'll continue to pay attention. We know that at some point, there's been calls for nations to go in and actually try to restore order in Haiti. We've seen everything from, the UN trying to be involved, the US trying to work with either Canada or Mexico or somebody to go in there and be willing to do this. I have a sneaking suspicion that as it continues to escalate, we will see someone intervene, and it will probably be from the West, meaning from our allies.
And yet another kind of proxy could open up in that avenue. LOD Will says, my neighbor thinks JB is the president. LOL. Well, again, talking about earlier, like, if you do believe certain things were off-putting about 2020, then when you look at the grand scheme of things and all the stuff that's happening and people being flown in and the South and all of this happening and the hack into our critical infrastructure, the leaking of the addresses and names of every weapon owner and balloons flying over all of our bases, it's kind of sus. Yeah, to say the least. But maybe maybe he'll get help soon, your neighbor. And then thank you, LOD Will, Viv B, Bam. I love Bad Apple Media. Thank you. Dansla Music, Genius by Birth. Thank you for gifting out badges. Thank you. Prayers for Wages World for a quick recovery. And then Paul Barbacano, Richard Koschmeider, and Quich Churchian. Thank you for subscribing. Mama Bear and Papa Bear, thank you for subscribing as well. Please share this show out with anybody and everybody. Appreciate that. Again, as far as we have a hard time growing as well. I think 8,000 subscribers in a year. So get this out. Share it with new people. Obviously, there's a push against any kind of info other than MSM. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. Dex, thank you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
Let's get this shoutro going. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Nothing's gonna help you now when the rapture comes. get your money out. Nothing's gonna help you now. When the rapture comes, you are going straight down. You can get your money out. Nothing's gonna help you now. When the rapture comes, you are